Hi, my name is Mark Clamage. This is the latest video about the Old Town Cemetery project that I've been working on. Things are reaching a point where I'd really like people to take a look at the model and give me their opinion and see whether there's anything missing. So I wanted to show you what the model looks like uh, using the SketchUp Viewer. And on my web page, I will have a link both to where you can download the model and where you can install the SketchUp Viewer from. This is the desktop version. I haven't figured out how to do this on my telephone yet, or I actually have it on my telephone, and but not how to record it. The idea is that you load the model and the program onto your phone. You go down to the cemetery, you load up the model, and you use it to navigate around the cemetery and find points of interest. So we're going to do it with on the desktop first, and that should be enough for today. So I'm going to load the model, which is the Old Town Cemetery model. And there will be a short break while that loads. Okay, so before we look at this too much, if you look along the top of here, these are called tabs, and each one takes you instantly, or almost instantly, to a particular location in the cemetery. So if we want to go to the memorial entrance, I click that, and I'll talk about these letters soon. And so here we are at the memorial entrance, or we could go to the public safety entrance, I'm calling it, which is uh, near the old public safety building at the other end of the cemetery. Then I go back to the start. And the way that I've organized this, and this is where I'm going to be needing help from people, is if you look at these headstones, they're all more or less in lines. So what I did was I put labels on the lines A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You can see I started doing it down lower, but I haven't gotten to it yet. And these white lines indicate where I'm going to have a canned walkthrough through this area, so that if you want to walk down path D, you'll be able to load up a little animation that shows that. You also notice that I've got numbers across the top, and so if I go to one of these tabs, that should say 1-ABCD, and it will eventually. It's going to take us to somewhere in here, 1-ABCD. So I click that, and we go for a nice ride. And there we are. If I go to 2-ABCD, it takes us over to that part of the cemetery. And I'm going to have all of these set up for your use. The other thing is, let's go back to ABCD1. You can see that I've started labeling the headstones. And again, when it's finished, when you go to ABCD1, it's just going to show the ones that are visible from this viewpoint. If every single one in the cemetery is turned on, it's just going to turn into a blur. You can also see it's a little hard to read these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to, it's currently on shaded with textures, and that's why you see the shading and the sunlight. But I'm just going to go to hidden line. And then it all becomes a lot clearer which label is associated with which headstone. So that's something that's going to come up. Now, navigating. Let's talk about navigating, because that's going to be important. Over here on the left, you have the orbit tool, the pan tool, the zoom tool, the zoom window, zoom extents, zoom previous, look around, and walk. And since it's currently on look around, when I move the cursor, we remain standing in the same place, but we go in a circle looking at everything that's around us. If I go to orbit, then we go in a circle around a center point. And we can also use the walk tool and just start going in a direction, and then you say, all right, now let's look over here. So I go to the look around tool, and then I go back to the walk tool, and I walk up closer, so on and so forth. I think it's helpful to learn the SketchUp commands for navigating, and they're all based on using the scroll button on your mouse. If I scroll down, I move away from wherever I'm looking at. If I scroll up, I move towards what I'm looking at. Not only that, but if I position the cursor, let's do this just because that looks odd. If I position the cursor somewhere and then scroll up, it zooms in to where my cursor is positioned. Or I can go completely to the other side just by moving my cursor over there, and then we zoom in. You notice I also have enclosures listed. That's a separate item. I'll talk about that some other time. However, so I'm not using these buttons right now. Instead, I'm using the scroll button to zoom in and zoom out. If you press down the control button, it turns into orbit. And if you hold down the shift key and press down on the scrolling button, you pan back and forth. So I can zoom in, then hold down the shift key and pan. And it's a little slow because I have the sunlight turned on. So, ooh, look at that. This is what I'm looking for. See how that headstone and those columns are floating above the ground? I got to fix that. Same thing over there. So that's one thing that I like people looking for. I'm also going to turn on the default tray, just because if I click this button right here, it turns off the shadows and things move a lot more quickly. If I click it again, same thing. You won't use the display settings. I suppose you could, but there's no real need to. And the problem with this desktop version is that you cannot turn layers on and off, which you can on the telephone version, oddly enough, and that would be extremely useful, but that's an issue for another time. So please take a look at my website. Download this file, Old Town Cemetery model.skp. It's only 23 megs. And then you're going to need to go to Trimble, which is the company that owns SketchUp software, and download the viewer from there. You can also, you'll also have to sign up with them. Sorry about that. But until I figure out, until I become a better programmer than I am, and I'm not any kind of programmer at all, that's something to think about. So you can download it to your desktop and take a look at this file. You can download it to your telephone and also download this file onto your telephone, assuming it has some space to put it. and we'll talk about that in the next video. Thank you very much for your attention, and there'll be more coming up soon.